I've been looking forward to. I haven't seen this. I said that I was actually going to review this live instead of watching it and reviewing it on the Anton Daniels channel. Nancy Pelosi, ladies and gentlemen. Nancy Pelosi. Now, I think that Nancy Pelosi could quite possibly be one of the most despicable switch up people that I've ever seen in my entire life. If you look at who Nancy Pelosi was versus what she's become in her older age, it's despicable. You know what I've always wondered before I play this? You know what I've always wondered? What's the point? I understand when younger people do crazy things because younger people are ignorant. You know what I'm saying? Like they make decisions and they do bad things because they don't know any better about what they should have been doing, or they have this short-term mentality mindset, right? So a lot of people think that you got to do whatever it takes in order to be able to get visibility. We got to do whatever it takes in order to be able to get the position. We got to get the money or whatever. And so they don't have the long-term vision for how they impact other people or what their legacy is going to be. And so they'll finesse. They take shortcuts. They finesse. They'll do whatever it takes to maintain power, so on and so forth. But when I look at older people a lot of times and they know better, but they still stuck in their ways, right? You look at a Nancy Pelosi. Let me see how old Nancy Pelosi is. Nancy Pelosi is 85 years old, bro. Nancy Pelosi is 85 years old. I'm going to put that poll up in the chat, Denroy. I'm going to start putting polls up in the chat, and I'm going to let y'all vote on who y'all think fault it is. Is it the Democrats' fault or is it the Republicans' fault? Nancy Pelosi is 85 years old, fam. She has very few years ahead of her than she has behind her. I kind of look at it like this. I look at it like an old hoe. I'm not saying that Nancy Pelosi is a hoe. I'm saying that I look at it like an old hoe. Now, when you go in the church, a lot of times the older women used to be younger women and they used to bust it down for a real one. Sheesh, listen to me, hear me out. The older women at one point, they was as pretty as you, sheesh. You don't even know that, do you? You look at these women and they got these wrinkles and they walking around with they big hats on. Oh, God. And they singing they old Negro spiritual Christian songs. Wade in the water. Wade in the water. You know, they singing a song. They listen to their spiritual stuff. They listen to their Fred Hammond. They got they, you know what I'm saying? They Canton Jones. They put on Shakira and all of the other different gospel singers and they praise God. Oh, hallelujah. A lot of them are former hoes. You can't imagine it because bruh, let me tell you something. I seen a picture of a woman. I seen this picture of a woman and she was a old lady. Like she looked crazy old. Like she, you know, like the flabby arms and like the hard skin and stuff like that. And I seen a picture. I said, oh, who is that? And it looked like a model. I mean, looked like a straight up model. Oh, that was me when I was 23 years old. I was coming in my, on a different situation. I was coming in my building, or I was coming down out of my building and I was leaving out. And she said, there was this lady in there. She said, Anton, I want to show you something. And so she one of those nosy people. You come in, she give you all of the 411 and what's going on and who doing what and all of that stuff, right? So she sit in the lobby a lot. And she got some money, I guess, that her ex-husband left her or whatever. And so she stays in the building. And she said, I want to show you something. And I said, oh, okay, let me see it. She says, who was it? She was with somebody famous. She said, remember when I was telling you that I used to hang out with such and such? I forgot what it was. I said, yeah. She said, this is me and them. And she was bad. She was bad. Straight up. She was bad. She looked good and she was with him. And you could tell she was living a life and all of that. So a lot of times what y'all don't realize is that these older women that wade in the water, a lot of these older women at one point looked like you. They looked like you. You don't know that, but they look like you. We all gonna age. That's why you shouldn't put too much stock into all of that foolishness, because we all age. It's the character. It's whether or not somebody got a good attitude. It's whether you want to spend your time with people, because eventually we all get old, right? And we got methods to keep your neck tight. I seen Kris Jenner over there the other day, and she was looking like just like Kim Kardashian. I said, how old is this lady? We got different methods, but eventually we all get old. And so my point of this whole conversation is, as you get older, you are supposed to actually get away from the superficial things that don't mean anything anymore, because you've lived life. Even at 43 years old, the things that mean something to a 22, 23-year-old, I talk to my daughter. My daughter be like, oh my God, we got to get this car. We got to get that car. M3 competition, G80 and all of this stuff. I'd be like, oh, okay, I don't care. The things that's meaningful to me is not the things that's meaningful to her, but it's meaningful to me because it's meaningful to her, right? But as you get older, you care more about impact, doing the right thing. You care less about whether or not people like you or dislike you. You just focus on doing the right thing. So when I see a Nancy Pelosi and she's standing on this foolishness, and it's completely different from what she knows the right thing to be, because she said what the right thing to be is before. At 85 years old, I have to ask myself, why? Why? Why is she standing on business when it comes to something that you shouldn't be standing on business on as an 85-year-old woman? You understand what I'm saying now? It's like, listen, all right. Are you still worried about the same thing that Jasmine Crockett is trying to get off? Because I understand Jasmine Crockett. She is a young firecracker. She's for the streets, all of that stuff. And so she's going to try to get her stud off. Nancy Pelosi shouldn't be trying to keep the government closed using the same talking points as Hakeem Jeffries and Jasmine Crockett and AOC and all the rest of them. Her fight should be different. She should actually be doing something productive for the people. Why do we care about what Nancy Pelosi's net worth is? When you get 85 years old, does it really matter what your net worth is? Younger people care because they think that that's what makes them great, right? That is what, and I'm getting into the video. Let me just cook for a minute. Younger people care because they looking at all of the things that they can do and all of the different chicks and all of the different dudes and where they can travel and all of this stuff. But by the time you get to a certain age, you don't care anymore. You just want to have a good life. You want to have peace. You want to have fun. You want to be, you want to make sure that your children and your grandchildren are okay. Why does 3, 4, 500 million, $1 billion matter to somebody that is 85 years old and you can't take it with you? You understand what I'm saying? Like, everything you do at that point should be for the love of the game. If you good enough to where you can live whatever life you want to live for the rest of your life, I can't imagine wanting to still stand on doing unthinkable things to make that type of money. You see?
We are 8 days into a government shutdown that has no end in sight. Joining me now is a veteran of shutdown fights that seem to roil Capitol Hill every few years, the former House Speaker of the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, is here at the table. Day 8 of the government. First of all, thank you so much for being here in person. We are day 8. This is a real stalemate, unless you know something I don't. But right now what we're seeing is President Trump and Republican leaders are saying they're not going to negotiate on extending the healthcare subsidies until the government reopens. So I guess my first question is, what's wrong with that position? Why not open the government and then negotiate?
The government was opened, and then the Republicans closed it because they did not want to extend health care subsidies. It means that it will raise the cost of health care to America's working families. They had their chance for all of this, but they didn't do it. Now they're saying, oh, if you open it, we'll do it. I don't believe that, but nonetheless. Here's the thing. The reason that the government is shut down is because the Republicans have insisted on taking down the subsidies, also Medicare, Medicaid, all of that, food for children, hundreds of billions of dollars for SNAP, to give a tax cut to the wealthiest people and the wealthiest corporations in America.
They're literally, I've been doing this long enough. Content creation. I've been doing content creation long enough and been following fiercely every single thing that's happening to know when people get it. Have y'all remember when they did that video last year during the election where the different news stations and stuff like that were all saying the exact same script, no matter where they were in the country, if you were local or if you were national and all of this stuff? They give Democrats talking points and then they say the exact same script. And they say stuff like fascism and they program it into you, and authoritarianism, and they say giving tax cuts to the wealthiest and pay your fair share. All of those are literal talking points from people that are producing talking points for them, and they spread it amongst all of the Democrats. And so they can't say anything outside of that. They use the same talking points. Hakeem Jeffries say the same thing as Nancy Pelosi. They say all the same things, bro.
You don't expect us to say, okay, we'll agree to you're giving a tax cut to the richest people in America and increasing the cost of health care to open government. It's going to be up to them. They shut down government, and they're going to have to open up government. They have every shutdown since the 90s, when I've been around anyway, has been a Republican shutdown.
I understand what you're saying about where the differences are, and they are very big. They are voting yes on what we say here in Washington, a clean CR, a bill to keep the government running for 7 weeks, and Democrats are voting no, and for the reasons you just said. So how are they shutting down the government?
First of all, it isn't a clean CR.
Okay.
So let's not...
And I can appreciate these liberal networks putting pressure on these politicians.
Relate to that. It's not a clean CR.
What do they have in it?
Going into that. The point is, Democrats who created Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act, all of that, are now being asked, reject that so we can give a tax cut to the rich. We're not doing it. And it isn't a question of, well, let's come back together so we can discuss it. That isn't going to happen. They had that chance. Now they just have to open government with it as a stipulation.
So how do you get there? Would it be the president saying he's willing to engage in negotiations? What do you actually need tangibly to get there?
Well, let me just say I'm so pleased with Hakeem Jeffries and the role he's playing for our House Democrats, Chuck, of course. But here's the thing. Everything important springs from the people. The public knows that this is wrong for them. This is a kitchen table issue for them. This is a kitchen table issue. They want costs lowered. The Republicans are raising the cost. And this is, our members have been all over the country spreading the word. Lincoln, public sentiment is everything. With it, you can accomplish almost anything. And that is what we were doing. They're going to hear from their own constituents that government has to open up under these conditions.
And the conditions are that you want them to just automatically raise or extend, I should say, the subsidies for Obamacare.
Yeah, not to cancel them, but also it has to be in the law.
When you say cancel, they
means.
expire at the end of the year.
Yeah, so they must be expired.
Without any kind of negotiation over it, because they want reforms.
What reforms do they want? They wanted to reduce. They want.
Does she own
So you
her?
just don't buy any of it.
What do you mean reforms?
I'm just telling you what they've been on TV saying constantly.
I know that's what they say on TV, but look at history. Look at the experience. When he was president before, he was going to whatever. He said Obamacare sucks. That's what he said. Obamacare sucks. It's not about reforms. We're all interested in reforms all the time. The subsidies are a reform. Under Biden, they are an improvement over the Affordable Care Act, and I'm very proud of the Affordable Care Act and the reforms. But they have not, they wanted, over 70 times they voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act.
But this is a very specific part of the Affordable Care Act that you know better than I is popular in a lot of their districts
and that's
across the country.
And you say, how are we going to open it? We're going to open it because it's very popular and well among Democrats, among Republicans, and among independents.
But you also mentioned making cuts to programs that Congress had already approved, raising. So you're talking about a wide array and wide range of wants and sort of demands that Democrats have.
Why do y'all keep saying she's making clicking sounds? She needs a software update. Have you ever updated? Bro, they don't have software on 67 Chevys. This is complete analog, bro. This is 100% manual. This is a manual. Ain't no over-the-air updates. You can't convert this over into a newer model. This is an old school. This is an 85 Chevy Caprice. This is an 86, 85, because she's 85 years old. This is an 85 Buick Regal, boy. Over-the-air updates. It's a 4-barrel carbureted 305.
This kind of thing many, many times. I still can't see, and maybe you can explain it, how you get from here to there, because it feels like we're going to be in this for a long time.
Well, when President Trump was president before, it was 35 days.
Yeah.
And I remind you, he said, I'm very proud of this shutdown. What? That's the words he used, because they don't believe in governance, and then they don't believe in the work that government does. So now they're saying they may not pay the employees that do the work, which the law that he signed says they must pay.
Well, let me
the
ask you
employees.
about that. I'm glad you brought that up, because not only are they suggesting that perhaps they will not pay some furloughed workers,
Yes.
they're also still holding out the possibility of just firing federal workers. It's a pressure tactic against you and your fellow Democrats to do whatever it takes to vote yes to reopen the government.
No, with all due respect, they were going to fire these people anyway. Just look at their game plan.
They don't care about y'all. They don't care about y'all. I don't know when y'all gonna realize that Democrats hate you, bro. Democrats hate you. They don't care. Look, you know what? She just literally told you without telling you. They look at you as collateral that was already going to be expendable anyway. She said, listen, we think that they was going to let these people go anyway. We ain't tripping about it. They're not tripping about it. Let me see what my polls say right now. 96% of people believe that Democrats are responsible for the government shutdown.
They were firing them
So
anyway.
you think it's
and
an
the
excuse?
workers know that. The workers are better informed than most of us on this because they're bearing the brunt of it. And they know had this firing lined up for a long time.
So you don't buy it? You think this is an excuse?
Of course I don't buy it. But I don't buy it. But there's clarity here. It's no use confusing the issue with, they might have and would have and should have and all that. No. They're giving a tax cut to the rich, $4 trillion tax cut to the rich at the expense of food in the mouths of babies, health care for families, Medicaid for long-term health care for seniors, as well as for poor children.
Nope. It's to get rid of illegal health care or health care for illegal migrants And more importantly, is to get rid of the fraud, waste, and abuse that come along with people that are abusing the system, and forcing them to either do volunteer work to enroll in school or to work part-time so that they can ultimately get off a system and stop taking advantage of taxpayers and people stop doing healthcare fraud. That's what it's really for.
Not to
Draining
even
the
mention the
swamp.
Medicare cuts that they have, but I will mention them. In any event, don't ask Democrats to say we are going to reject everything we stand for, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. They're firing so many people at Social Security, it's hard to get your benefit.
Yeah.
So this is a budget is a statement of values. What is important to you as a nation is reflected in your budget, and they have shown what is not important to them.
And I know, you know, we're asking Republicans tough questions too, because the question is, where is there compromise? There has to be at some point. I want to ask.
There should not be any compromise when it comes to continuing to keep the government open. You should be debating that on the House floor. That is your job.
You about what's going on in some Democratic-led cities. President Trump this morning called for Mayor Brandon Johnson of Chicago, the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, to be jailed. Yesterday, he hinted that he might invoke the Insurrection Act to send U.S. troops into cities. You obviously come from a very well-known Democratic city, San Francisco.
We gon' get to that. We gonna get to that.